Hi, thanks for joining us for the Family Plot, Gardening in the Mid-South. I'm Chris Cooper. Spring means flowers. Today we're going to show you how to plant them in containers. Also, we're going to give the area around our garden a makeover. Today we're going to start planning the changes. That's just ahead on the Family Plot, Gardening in the Mid-South.
Production funding for the Family Plot, Gardening in the Mid-South is provided by Goodwin's Landscape and Garden Center in Germantown since 1943 and continuing to offer its plants for successful gardening with 7 greenhouses and 3 acres of plants, plus comprehensive landscape services. International Paper Foundation, the WKNO Production Fund, the WKNO Endowment Fund, and by viewers like you. Thank you.
Welcome to the Family Plot. I'm Chris Cooper. Joining me today is Tonya Ashworth. Tonya is our local garden expert, and Carol Reese will be with us shortly. Carol is a horticulture specialist with UT Extension. All right, Tonya, so we have our containers out here. You did this for us last year. We're going to have you back again to do it for us now.
Thank you so much for having me back here to make some pretty flowers for your garden. Okay. All right, so the thing to know about container gardening is it's been around for literally thousands of years. People have been putting plants in pots forever. Okay. And you can put just about anything in a pot and grow it. Think about bonsais, you know. But vegetables, herbs, flowers, and today we're going to plant some flowers for you. All right. Now, when you choose your container, of course, you already have this nice barrel here for us. It's kind of a rustic feel to go in your vegetable garden, but if you're choosing a container for your house, you might want to think about, you know, the style of your house. Do you want something formal or something kind of rustic? How large is your space? Okay. Does the container need to be on casters so you can move it, or are you going to put it someplace and leave it? Wow. So a
lot of things to consider there.
Yeah. Now, after you pick your container, and I always like to choose one that has drainage holes in the bottom. It's not absolutely necessary if your container is large enough, but I like to have drainage holes. You want to fill it up with some kind of soil. Now, if you have a very large one, you do have the option of filling the bottom with fillers. Okay. You don't have to use the really best potting soil through the whole thing, but you want to make sure the top 6 to 12 inches, depending on what you're planting, has the good stuff in it. Okay. So any kind of good bagged potting soil will work. Okay. So we already have ours filled with soil and ready to go. The next thing you want to do is choose your plants. Well, there's lots of things to consider there too. You know, is your container going to be in full sun? Is it going to be in shade? Is it going to be part shade? Part of the day sun, part of the day shade. So you have to think about the conditions that your plants are going to be in, and then choose all plants that can tolerate the sun or the shade. Sure. You may even want to think about watering. If you have things in there that are low water and things that are, you know, heavy drinkers, then that might not be a good combination. Right. So, okay. I like to plant colors depending on the container too. So for a barrel, I'm thinking rustic. So oranges, reds, purples, greens, your primary colors are good for a rustic look. If you've got a formal looking container and it's going to grow in front of your nice fancy little porch, then greens and whites make a nice elegant look. Anything like white and dark purple, white usually is kind of a classic look. And if you're kind of going for the country cottage, pastels are good for that. So think about the look and the feel that you want for your container. Okay, so now that we've got our plants chosen, we've got mostly sun plants here. And the next thing we want to do is think about different heights. Okay. So to make a really nice presentation, it's just like you're going to do a flower arrangement in a vase. You want something kind of tall, you want something to be kind of a filler, and then you want something to spill over the edge to break up the hard edge of the container. And we call that thriller, filler, and spiller. Spiller. So for our thriller, which doesn't look very thrilling right this minute, thrilled, huh? But it will be eventually. We have got a canna tuber. So this is the little top part of the package that it came from. Okay. And we're going to plant this in the center to be our tall thriller kind of a plant. Okay, we'll see here and watch you do that. Our trowel here. All right. And you can see that this has signs of life, so that's a good thing. It's trying to poke out already.
Okay.
And because it's like that, I'm not going to plant it really deep.
Okay. So we don't have to do anything else with that to plant it. Doesn't have to be
That's pretty much
teased
it.
or anything. Okay.
Nope. That's pretty much it. And then it's going to go in the center. And then around, I'm going to choose some marigolds.
Marigolds. My dad loves marigolds.
Yeah.
Those would be good.
Gives it a nice kind of garden feel, you know. Take these little plastic things out, y'all.
Okay.
Don't leave those in there.
And again, we don't have to tease the roots or anything. We just plant them right in the
Well,
soil.
these are pretty loose, so not too much to worry about there. Now, if it was very, very, you know, just nothing but a white mass of roots and like they're growing out the bottom of the plastic container, then yeah, you want to do something extra, but probably not necessary with that. So there's our marigolds, and we've got some nice verbena here. Now, when you're at the store choosing your plants, keep an open mind. So don't have in your head, okay, I'm going to go to the store and I'm going to buy this, this, and this, because they may not have what you need.
Okay.
Exactly. So keep an open mind about what things you could substitute with if they don't have the exact plant that you had your heart set on.
It's a pretty good sized fruit ball there.
It is. You want to check for nice white roots when you're at the store choosing your plants, and this one has a nice root system. I'm going to put this one kind of in the front. And you know, I'm kind of planting these all the way around. If your container is going against a wall, you can kind of do your tall thing right in the back and everything up in the front, everything else, but this we're going to see from all sides.
Now, do you do this with your containers at home?
Yes, mostly. It depends on what I'm growing in it.
Okay.
I grow a lot of herbs at my house, so I don't really do this little formula with those. I have one pot that I really like of my herbs. I grow lavender, and I grow it in a purple pot. So when it blooms, it has the nice purple flowers, and then in that nice purple pot, I really like the look of that. So I usually will do a smaller container than this and grow all of one thing, but then different sizes of containers. So I'll have like, instead of doing the height in one container, I've got 3 containers of different heights that I'm planting all one thing in each one. Does that make sense?
It makes sense. It does.
So it's kind of a 3-piece arrangement instead of an all-in-one look.
Gotcha. Okay.
All right, so now I'm going to start adding in my things that are going to spill over the edge.
These are spillers.
Yes. These are our spillers, and they break up the hard edge of the container. And this is our wave petunias. Nice
now, do we need to
roots.
pinch, if we have something like that on our plants, we can go ahead and pinch that off?
I mean, that's not going to get any better, so yeah, we'll take care of that.
Just pinch it.
Now, during the season, during the growing season, you have to keep in mind your containers are probably going to dry out a little bit quicker than the stuff planted directly into the ground. So you want to check on the watering probably every day. Go out and check your containers and see if they need any watering. It's also good to have containers for water management. Can usually take less water than if you did a huge bed full of annuals, but you get just as much of an impact with your container when it becomes full in the summer. Also, you want to scout for insect and disease problems during the season, and I'm going to scoot this marigold over a smidgen to make room.
Yeah, I would also tell folks to check those pots to make sure they don't have any weeds growing.
Oh yeah, that's a good point, Chris. And I'm going to break this up because it's kind of big, this root ball. And it will not hurt it to, you know, get in there and really mess around with it. It will grow back, all those roots will. So that's kind of how we do our containers. Also, you may want to deadhead your spent blooms during the year, during the season. And it may not look like much when you first get it planted, but with a little bit of sun and water, it won't be long before it's nice and full for you.
Right, and this is full sun, so it's definitely gonna get that. All right, well, Tonya, we definitely appreciate that demonstration.
Thank you.
We can't wait to see what it looks like later on.
Me too, me too.
All right.
Thank you.
There are a number of gardening events going on in the next couple of weeks. Here are just a few that might interest you. Now we have our producer, the producer of this show, Mr. Peter Richards, out here with us, along with Ms. Carol Reese. And we're going to be talking about what we're going to do with our outdoor space. So where do we need to start?
Well, you know, as we talked about before, when you're kind of trying to develop what you want to do with your landscape, we think about, well, who's the user? And it's going to be the show.
Right.
So we're going to define this space to make it more attractive and functional for all the things that you do with the gardening show. So I think you had some thoughts on that. And
yeah, I did. First of all, the garden here, the vegetable garden that we have with the 3 raised beds, whenever we're shooting that, it's pretty ugly looking behind. We got a chain link fence and mowed lawns back there.
I agree.
Do you?
I'd like to come up with a way to create some sort of screen here so that we see greenery instead of just seeing chain link fence.
Yeah. And that's it?
Well, and then also over on this side here, once again, we just have satellite dishes that we see, and I'd like to come up with some sort of screen that goes here. I don't know if it'd be shrubs or something like that.
Well, I think you don't have enough room to do shrubbery here. You would there. We have not enough room to get between the fence. By the time you put shrubs, it's going to be, you know, 4 or 5 feet wide eventually. You're not going to be able to get to the back of your beds. So we'll probably go with some evergreen vines back there, which isn't going to completely cover that concrete thing we might want to.
Right,
If we could talk your building whomever's into letting us, perhaps planting some evergreens against that wall, make a little bed out there as well.
Okay.
That would help soften things.
Okay.
Okay.
And how about over here on the?
I like that idea. I kind of think you might want to keep it kind of low. We don't want to feel too closed in, but to define the space. And in a dream world, I think maybe this whole area could make kind of a courtyard.
Okay.
And the vegetable garden
that.
be just sort of part of an ornamental space, which is kind of the movement these days. You know, you're putting those veggies in and making them cute and part of your landscape. It's not the ugly old vegetable garden of yore. So if we could do that, and they don't care, because for one thing, that would mean we didn't have to get in here anymore to mow. And as you can tell, the Bermuda grass is already creeping in. This was meant to be no mow, but you know, I like to call it Bermuda the Hun. Bermuda the Hun. It's a great turf grass for a tough situation, but for a gardener, it's such a weed.
Yeah.
And it's already come in here and taken over all this gravel area that was meant to be turf-free. So that would eliminate mowing.
Okay.
From, I'd say, this whole area, if we could define that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now I also want to see if we can't do more demonstrations outside having to do with ornamental flowers and things like that, which might be out here a little farther. So it'd be in front of the garden. Now, we do have to leave enough space that we can put cameras in between the garden and wherever our next bed is.
Right.
So there's some spacing issues we have to deal with there.
And I kind of like that idea in a way too, because I think a lot of times people don't realize how much space they need. They tend to make beds too small, and they don't realize how big the plants are going to get. And maybe even make it as a sort of a series of rooms.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And I love the idea of seasonal interest. I mean, you could get out here year round and talk about things that bloom in the fall, or fall color, or winter interest. Things that attract birds. Oh my gosh, we could just do all kinds of fun things. Listen to the we. I'm just
Oh, you're going to do it all for us.
I'll be glad to advise on that. And I like the defining it, and you were talking about some berms. And it may be, do you know if the soil is wet?
Yes, this soil is very wet.
Yes.
Okay.
Some of that might just be from the irrigation that they do here, but often, even during the hottest parts of the summer, the soil's often very soggy.
Yeah, okay. Well, I know too the orientation of the sun, and people may not realize that they can look at their iPhone and it's going to have a compass on it, and that this area is south.
Right.
So if we put something a little taller in this area, it's not going to shade your vegetable garden. We don't want to put anything too tall over there, and we don't want to block your satellite dish. I know that would be a major sin here.
Yes, can't do that.
So are there other constraints to the site?
Not really. We do have a lot of the electrical for the building runs under this area, so we can't dig big holes. We probably can't put in big trees because we would end up either hitting the electrical lines, or also all of the satellite dish video lines run through here as well, and so we don't want to disturb those because that would take us off the air and that wouldn't be good.
Yeah, we don't like that.
No, that would not be good. Well, let's go up. Like you said, berms, a lot of people, I'll do that a lot of times anyway as a quick remedy. I don't like to till I like to sometimes bring in good soil and go up and plant in the good soil. And if we go with small trees or even some nice flowering shrubs, those roots are not going to be a problem with those. Those cables are in conduits, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And people don't realize that a lot of times those roots stay actually in the top few inches of soil. They don't go straight down like people kind of envision in their minds. So we could do some of that. And I see that big wall of the building is sort of a challenge.
The big gray wall.
Yeah, there's a big gray wall. It's very prison-like. I really want to soften it.
Oh.
And there's some nice upright green Japanese maples that'll take full sun in a southern exposure like this.
Okay.
That would give us a range of colors through the season and soften that thing, or even some conifers.
Okay.
Yeah. The garden room thing I really like. I think we may have to think about it. It may take a little more space. If you want to do 2, we could do easily enough. 3, we're probably going to go all the way to the wall, because the time we make those definitions, we're going to take up a lot of space.
Okay. So what do you see us putting in here in these rooms? What sort of rooms could you see?
Well, I think for one thing, just like we had the seating today to do some of the shooting, we might have a place to have some benches and a nice little seating area. It'd be a good way to demonstrate outdoor living, the types of furniture that you'd want to do, the things that you want to go outside. Different container gardens and different seasons of container gardens. Cool season vegetables. My gosh, there's just a lot. If the weather permits, of course. Shooting is always an issue, but still it gives us a whole range of options. And of course, we love to talk about the fact that winter is often ignored, and the different seasons are often ignored. And maybe if y'all are out here more, y'all would take a better care of the garden.
We take care of that Bermuda.
And grow some of your own vegetables. I know a lot of times I saw somebody's already decided to take home the thyme today, so that'll be more of it too. Yeah.
Okay.
Now let me ask you this though. Somebody's probably looking at this like, so what are they going to do with the Bermuda? What about the grass here?
Good point, Chris. Yeah, it can actually, as you know, be taken up and used somewhere else. You can cut sod. You can actually rent sod cutters and roll it up and take it to some place that would really like to have it. I'm not a big fan, as you know, because of the fact that it is such a thug, but there's a time and place for Bermuda. It's a great for kids to play and run. It takes a lot of traffic. It loves full sun, and it stops erosion. So it's a good plant. We won't let it go to waste.
Okay. Good. Well, thanks, Carol. That gives us a lot to talk about, and I'm sure we'll be talking more in the future about how exactly to arrange all this.
Probably so.
And I'll tell you what, we can't wait to see what this is going to look like.
I think it'll be fun.
I think it will be fun.
I think it'll be a great challenge, but I think it'll be a lot of fun to work on, and we'll learn a lot doing it.
Sure. I think it'd be great. Remember, we love to hear from you. Send us a letter or an email with your gardening questions. Send your email to familyplot@wkno.org. The mailing address is Family Plot, 7151 Cherry Farms Road, Cordova, Tennessee, 38016. All right, ladies, here's our Q&A session. You ready for this?
Ready?
Sure.
All right, here's our first viewer email. Amy writes, we have been trying to go non-chemical on our lawn, but this year the weeds are worse than ever before. There is no way we can pull them all by hand as in years past. Is there any way to get rid of the weeds without the use of chemicals? Who wants to jump in on that one first?
Well,
There you go.
because they didn't control them all last year is why they're worse. And I think the key to them is trying to get rid of them before they go to seed would be one thing. And of course, a healthy lawn is the first thing. But the non-chemical methods, I've heard of people burning them. A little blowtorch.
Yeah.
It depends on, if that's safe in your particular situation. The vinegar thing can burn them down, but it doesn't, that's still a chemical.
Yeah, it's still a chemical.
And it doesn't kill the roots of the perennial ones.
Right.
I don't know, y'all got any thoughts?
Well, if you're trying to go organic, and if that's what they mean by non-chemical,
Probably so.
after you get rid of the majority of them, corn gluten meal, you can use that as a pre-emerge to control the seeds, the weed seeds before they come up. But because it's organic, it's not quite as effective as the chemical pre-emerge. So you have to use it over several years for it to really start to create a barrier.
Right, and the first year is like 40 to 60% controls, second year is like 80%, third year is like 95%. But here are the drawbacks. Number one, it's expensive. Number two, you have to know the weed and their life cycle, because you're gonna have to reapply this every 4 to 6 weeks. And then here's the third thing, guys, pretty inconsistent results. So if you have excess moisture, which we do have in this area, or high soil microbial activity, it's not gonna work.
I've got one more thing to add.
Okay, sure.
Just don't sweat the weeds.
Yeah.
And
I was waiting for that one.
Yeah, I talk about love of weeds all the time because it does provide good wildlife habitat, and you're going to mow it anyway. So
Right.
I don't really understand the obsession. And so some people really like to be neat and orderly, and I wish I were more that way. But you know, that might be an option. Is to just sort of get an attitude adjustment.
But guess what? You know, people are actually eating weeds now.
Yeah.
You know, you can eat them in salad and things like that. So, I mean, there's different options out there, but
Sure.
the weeds are there. We're the ones that call them weeds, right?
Right.
Right.
You know, so they're meant to be there. All right, there you have it, Amy. Here's our next question. I like this one. I see a lot of people in my neighborhood that are pruning those crepe myrtles and they're whacking them off. Is it necessary to prune them this way? What do you think,
No.
Tonya? No, she says.
No.
No.
Not necessary. Your crepe myrtle should never be topped, cut straight off, heavily pruned. You might want to just trim back a little here and there to keep the
Right.
shape like you want it. And I know Carol always says if it's in your way, a limb is in your way, just prune that one. No need to just top the whole thing.
And follow it all the way back to where it originated. Don't ever top it. Don't leave a stub.
Okay.
But the key is choosing the right crepe myrtle to begin with. Now, if you already have a crepe myrtle there, you're kind of stuck with what you've got. But crepe myrtles come in all different mature heights. So choose the crepe myrtle that gets to the height that you want it, and we'll stop.
Okay. Anything to add to that?
Well, I think there's a myth that it makes them bloom. I hear that a lot.
Oh, I've heard that.
True, they do bloom on the new growth, but they're going to put on new growth and bloom nonetheless. And it certainly preserves the graceful shape rather than that amputation going on every year. So we try to discourage that topping, that amputated look. And it's certainly better looking in the winter months if they are left graceful and limbed up
Right.
and left to be tree form.
Stop the chop.
Stop the chop.
I've heard that somewhere before.
Yep.
Yeah, but I see it all over the landscape, and you know, I often tell people we're a copycat society. So if you're my neighbor and I, you know, cut my crepe myrtles that way, then guess what? You're probably thinking that's the correct way to do that. So there you go, and then there's the neighbor down the street. But I see it everywhere, and I think it's a bad practice.
Yes.
I do. So it's getting a haircut, but you're chopping off the head.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't quite understand that. All right, here's our next question. After this past winter, the leaves of my dwarf mondo grass are brown and tan, but now I'm seeing some new growth. Should I cut the old leaves back to the ground?
You're late. I still would probably. I don't know. They'll go up and cover the brown stuff. I might not do it this late. Because if they're up that far and you do it now, you're going to have those shredded edges and they're going to look kind of brown and ugly. But next year, I would recommend that they do it in March.
In March? Okay.
I would, and before the new growth starts. So about the time you think, I think spring might be arriving, that's the time to go out and do it.
Most people use weed eater, I've seen, lawnmower, so they're pretty good.
Lawnmower set on high,
Set on
Yeah.
high,
or
yeah.
a weed eater, it'll work
Yeah,
fine.
something like that. Okay. Do you like dwarf mondo grass?
I do.
You think it's pretty good? What about just monkey grass?
I think it can be used well. I think it's overused a lot of times. I don't like to see it used to outline
Right.
things. But a sweep of it can be a beautiful textural contrast to other things. And I've seen like just a single specimen of a variegated monkey grass used actually as a focal point in a bed or an accent, used really prettily with purple flowers, for example.
Right.
So it's almost like a little grassy thing, you know, and it can be used really well.
Okay. Well, look, while we have a couple minutes left, let's stay with the monkey grass for a second.
Okay.
So we usually get the question at the office, how do you kill it?
Yeah. Well,
What's a good way that you've heard to control that?
it's not a grass. It's
Right.
actually in the lily family, so they're going to have to use a broad spectrum, and it wouldn't be that hard to kill with you know, your glyphosate type things. But I bet when they're killing it, it's because they put in the wrong one to start with. A lot of people
Probably.
don't realize there's two
two kinds.
kinds. One's a running, the Larapi spicata, and it'll take over, but the muscari will stay put in discrete clumps. So if I were them, if I did want to go back in with it, I'd make sure I got the clumping types.
Okay, but if you had the runner, you think of glyphosate, or would you have to cut it down first and let it grow back and then spray it, you would think, with a glyphosate product? You
I
know,
think
catch the
that
new growth?
Yeah, I'm
Maybe,
thinking
yeah, the new growth.
be
but
more, it would pick it up better than
Yeah.
tough old growth would, I think.
Okay. Yeah, any comment with that, Tonya?
No, that, like you were saying, you know, once you get the actively growing growth, it'll take up the chemical easier than the older stuff.
Okay.
If they didn't want to spray it, they're going to need to till it and rake it out. It's going to be a lot of hand work.
Yeah, I've actually tried to dig some up before, and I
Yeah.
tell you, it's a lot of work.
Yeah.
I mean, massive root systems down there.
Right.
It could be pretty tough. I've known somebody actually put a black tarp over them
Yeah.
in the summer and just kind of smother it out a little bit.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's an option. It might take more than that to kill it all, but it would
Yeah.
do a good job toward killing a lot, and then
Yeah.
maybe do a little less hand work.
Okay. All right, ladies, appreciate that.
Okay.
All right. That's all we have time for today. Thanks for watching. I'm Chris Cooper. Be sure to join us next time for the Family Plot, Gardening in the Mid-South. Be safe.
Production funding for the Family Plot, Gardening in the Mid-South is provided by Good Winds Landscape and Garden Center in Germantown since 1943 and continuing to offer its plants for successful gardening with 7 greenhouses and 3 acres of plants, plus comprehensive landscape services. International Paper Foundation, the WKNO Production Fund, the WKNO Endowment Fund, and by viewers like you. Thank you.